Capitalism versus socialism. Which is better? Capitalism is private property rights and free trade and the freedom of businesses to run as they want without government intervention. Socialism is the government ownership of the means of productions, such as a country with a nationalized healthcare system. Both capitalism and socialism aim to have the best outcome possible for consumers, meaning as much value as possible for as little price as possible, with the most availability and no wait times. Let's take a look at the differences between these systems. Number 1. Profits and greed are good. Socialism does not have this economic engine with positive incentives. Contrary to public opinion, profits and greed are a good thing. They act as an economic engine where the only way to earn more money is to increase value, make prices more efficient, and make customers more pleased. Businesses that generate more value will make more money, but businesses that do not generate value will lose money to competitors who do. This can also lead to competition and reduction in price. All people in an economy, both businesses and consumers, have always been greedy and want to maximize their value for their money. Profits and greed are good. Businesses that treat customers badly or recklessly chase short-term profits will go bankrupt. This incentive system leads to wide-scale improvements in value, price, and availability at rapid pace. Innovation is inherent to free markets. Innovation is not just brand new technologies like the computer or the railroad. Innovation is everything about the business itself. It can be inventing new technologies. It can be improvements to existing technologies. It can be new methods to make factories more efficient, which reduces the cost of production. It can be new methods, which makes production in a factory faster, which increases output. And it can be anything which makes the customer experience more pleasant and higher value. Innovation is everything about the business. Socialism does not have this important incentive system. No matter how much money is thrown at a failing system, the fundamental realities in incentive systems will play out logically. Number 2. Government-run businesses, aka socialism, are a monopoly. They have no competition. Critics of capitalism focus on the existence of alleged monopolies. In contrast, socialist sectors actually are monopolies, where you are forced to transact and accept whatever services the government provides, paid for by mandatory taxes from you. Also, an advantage of a free market system with competition is that one business can experiment with new ideas, and if it goes bankrupt, only that business ceases to exist. Other businesses in the sector will learn from that example or copy it if it is a positive innovation. In contrast, a socialist monopoly sector, which makes bad decisions or bad experimentations, can tank the entire sector, the entire economy, the entire government all at once. Number 3. The explanation for a failing socialist sector will always be, we just need a bigger budget, we are underfunding it. Because the fundamental economic engine for socialism is such a failure, there will always be an excuse for its failures. Without exception, the explanation why a socialized sector did not work as expected will be a lack of budgetary funding. We see this exact story every single time in sectors like education, where if a government school is failing, despite the fact that each student may have tens of thousands of dollars in direct taxpayer funding, the explanation will always be that we are underspending on education. This exact situation also plays out in other sectors, such as healthcare. The fundamental problem is that the government should not be running markets and businesses. Dynamic markets like healthcare cannot be effectively run by the government, and fixed yearly budgets and budget battles in Congress cannot respond to market needs. Number 4. There are many examples of government-run sectors and businesses. Some European countries like the UK have nationalized healthcare systems which are paid for by taxes. These systems often ration health services and have long wait times due to their fixed yearly budgets, and more generally lack the ability to function as an innovative free market business. In fact, many countries still allow people to pay privately for private healthcare if they can afford it, or the healthcare need is urgent enough. These systems are a failure in a business sense, but have an ever-increasing, infinite government backstop, and are only ever truly praised for the fact that they appear to be free on a surface level, although of course this is only true because of the high mandatory taxes on the middle class. The New York City subway system is an example of a government-run business, although it was originally privately owned, built, and operated. It is now fully owned by the government. The train ride quality itself can be very poor and often dangerous due to criminals. Many people do not pay for their ticket and jump the turnstile. The administration of the business itself is wildly inefficient, relying on transit technology from decades ago, often due to heavy bureaucratic red tape, regulation, and strict adherence to union rules and contracts. Corruption and inefficiency by government officials is inherent to the system, as they likely siphon off millions to pay their friends and allies from taxpayer dollars, or just generally spend inefficiently. Private business is incentivized to allow none of these drawbacks, or else they will lose money and go bankrupt. The U.S. Postal Service loses billions every year. Meanwhile, its private market competitors like FedEx and UPS, and also Amazon, are profitable and efficient free market businesses. The DMV illustrates just how inefficient and low value a service to consumers can be when it is administered by the government. Public school education is often a monopoly. American schools in major cities often have students which fail basic standards year after year, yet funding for each student can be $20,000 per student. Whenever public schools fail to reach basic standards, the government's solution is to always increase the budget. This is the same as subsidizing a failing business. The socialist explanation is always underfunding. Public school districts are often entirely beholden to public sector unions, which make it virtually impossible to fire teachers. Public schools are infamous for their corruption scandals and poor student outcomes. Meanwhile, whenever private schools and charter schools exist, they are actually accountable to free market forces, which force them to improve student outcomes and keep costs in check. They must compete with other schools for students, otherwise students will go to better schools. The government artificially creates monopoly in the education sector. And finally, the most obvious examples of government-run businesses are in the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union ran farms, grocery stores, apartments, factories, and every other business in the economy. They were almost always unprofitable, extremely corrupt, and extremely inefficient. Fundamentally, when the government is in charge of a business, no one is actually in charge and no one is truly accountable for success or failure. A business entity, its CEO, and its shareholders are actually accountable for the business's success or bankruptcy. Number 5. You cannot just pass laws that say XYZ product is more abundant or XYZ product is cheaper. Only efficient businesses and innovation can achieve that. The government itself cannot just pass a law that says that products and services should exist or pass a law that says that these services should be magically cheaper. That is not how economics works. This is how government intervention in the economy often attempts to achieve positive outcomes. For example, by price controls or by bills named the Affordable Care Act. Number 6. The government should be a referee, not a player. The only role that the government should play is as a referee to act as guardrails. The government, with reasonable and light regulation, can prevent rivers from being polluted with toxic chemicals or any other reasonable use of regulation. In contrast, wherever we find heavy regulation where the government dictates how business must be run, such as healthcare and housing, we find economic disaster and skyrocketing prices. Number 7. If socialism for one sector is the superior economic model, you should support nationalizing every single sector of the economy, which is just communism. Number 8. Infinite demand caused by free, universal government services is a negative economic trait. Markets and prices exist due to supply and demand. Another problem that free healthcare causes is infinite demand. Supply and demand is a natural equilibrium where you are only willing to pay so much for a service. Your demand is heavily affected by the price. By allowing people to have free medical services paid for by the government, you artificially raise demand to infinity. Meanwhile, the actual supply of doctors and hospitals will be relatively flat or slowly increasing. The supply of healthcare services will be finite, while demand will be infinite. This will lead to massive overuse of free services because customers will overuse something they see as free and infinitely available. This will massively drive up costs and massively lengthen waiting times to see a doctor or any other service. In a free market of supply and demand, having services be correctly priced according to their true cost will cause customers to think for a moment about whether or not they want to trade their money for the service. This market force acts as a natural equalizer of supply and demand. Number 9. The primary defense of socialism, such as free healthcare, is that it's free. In reality, this is just a surface-level appearance of free services for everyone, with massive negative trade-offs. Of course, there's no such thing as free government services. In places like Europe, even middle-class earners can pay taxes as high as 50% to 75% on their entire income, just to pay for these allegedly free government services and social safety nets. There are no positive aspects of free universal healthcare in terms of value or price, just the surface-level appearance of free. This argument does not apply to any other sector of the economy, which people view as essential needs, and they view as being a human right. In sectors like farming, water, electricity, clothing, grocery stores to deliver the food products, and housing, we see that the free market is perfectly capable of delivering these key essential services. Consumers of these products and services are perfectly capable of paying for these products. They do not need to be delivered for free by a government agency. Free services from the government do not exist, and socialism actually disadvantages the working class. This viewpoint is economically shallow. The working class is not actually better off because of free services. In a free market system, the working class would have already paid for their own expenses, such as food, housing, or healthcare. Instead, under socialist systems, the working class would pay for their own expenses, plus the expenses of other people. This means that socialism forces you to subsidize the lives of other people, as well as pay for your own. Socialist free services directly incentivize dependence on government. On top of this, not only will the socialist free service cost equally as much as its free market alternative, it will likely cost many times as much due to the inefficiency and corruption of governments running businesses. You'll be forced to pay much more for government-run services for yourself and forced to subsidize and pay for these services to be given to others. Number 10. A defense of socialism is that the profits of corporations will be passed on to the citizens who will be better off. This is very wrong. Most businesses run at a profit margin of 5% to 10%. A very efficient business like Walmart actually runs at a profit margin of 2%. You achieve virtually nothing by passing on these very moderate profit margins onto the people. You eliminate all economic incentives to improve markets in terms of value and price that naturally come from profit motives. You then introduce the downsides of government-run businesses, which will without fail lead to the government-run grocery store or any other business turning into a negative profit margin business, which will then need more taxpayer funds to pay for its failing business. On top of this says nothing about the actual difficulty required to run a business like Walmart. Building up the systems that Walmart has to effectively do its job requires strong supply-side economics and innovative entrepreneurs. Government-run businesses, like grocery stores or any other sector, simply cannot do this function. CEOs get paid millions of dollars because they control companies which have billions of dollars of revenue. If a CEO makes good decisions, they can make the company more billions in revenue or lose the company billions. Walmart itself has $700 billion in revenue per year. The CEO is paid to manage this enormous revenue, and his bad decisions can bankrupt the business. The CEO of Walmart made $27 million in 2024. If we divided this pay among Walmart's 2.1 million employees, every employee would get a bonus of a grand total of $12 per year. Meanwhile, the total profits of Walmart for 2024 was $15 billion. Business of Walmart itself had a profit margin of about 3% because the grocery store business is very competitive and low margin. Let's assume Walmart gave away this entire profit margin to their employees. Dividing this profit among the 2.1 million employees, every employee would get a pay raise of $7,000. Currently, the median wage of a Walmart employee is about $29,000 per year. This means that dropping Walmart's profit margin to 0% and giving all profits to employees would increase wages for everyone by a grand total of 25%. This pay raise of 25% would not make all Walmart employees rich. This goes to show that employee wages are their share of the profits of the business. You are paid for your direct economic value that you manage and bring to the business. This example shows that profits are not infinite. Even reducing Walmart's profit margin to 0%, which makes the business unprofitable, does not increase wages a significant amount. Walmart already has a very tight profit margin of 3%. Without their 3% profit margin, Walmart would not have any savings at all, would not have any money to reinvest into the business and grow the number of stores, and would not have any money to pay out as dividends to shareholders. Obviously, a business with a 0% profit margin would go bankrupt. The criticism of capitalism for the existence of profits is very bad economics. Number 11. People will point to the failures of capitalism, with key examples being the housing and healthcare sectors. This is wrong. These are the most anti-free market and hyper-government controlled sectors in the entire economy. Watch my videos on housing and healthcare for more explanation. This is not due to free markets, but government intervention. In contrast, in markets where we find almost entirely free markets with minimal government intervention, such as the technology sector, we see dramatic increases in value and dramatic drops in prices. As well as value and price, availability in a free market sector is superior because production very quickly scales, and waiting times are often non-existent for products and services. An honorable mention is that people will point to the 2008 financial crisis as being an example of free market failure. This is also wrong. The 2008 crisis was caused by the government. See my video on the 2008 crisis. Number 12. Socialism often focuses on wealth inequality as a negative downside of capitalism that must be fixed. This is economically wrong. See my video on wealth inequality. Number 13. Some functions should be run by the government, such as the military. The military is not a business and is not a market. There are other aspects of the government that do not function like a business because they do not serve an economic purpose and do not have profit motives. For example, the military is run by the government. This is simply something that needs to exist, but it is not a business in any sense. Otherwise, there are some examples of jobs done by the government where communal pooling of resources makes sense, such as public roads. There's only space for one road, generally, so the government acts as a monopoly provider of the service. You get 99% approval of communal pooling of resources to create common roads or public police and fire. In contrast, you are unlikely to get more than 51% of the vote for things like nationalized healthcare. There's a difference between things that can easily be a free market and organizations that only the government can provide. Number 14. Trickle-down economics, aka supply-side economics, is a fact, leading to improvements in value, price, and availability. This is the primary economic measure which is always improved in free market sectors. Trickle-down economics is not about ending wealth inequality because in a free market, wealth inequality is actually a positive indicator that a business is valuable to consumers on a massive scale. Instead, trickle-down economics is measured by its economic output that is valuable to everyone, measured by value, price, and availability. For this reason, it is clear that trickle-down economics is an economic fact. Wherever we find true free markets, such as the technology sector, we see universal improvements in these metrics. Wherever we find heavily regulated, anti-free markets, such as housing and healthcare in the US, or simply socialist markets like nationalized healthcare, we see failures on these metrics. Trickle-down economics, more correctly called supply-side economics, is a fact. Economic wealth does trickle down. Number 15. The common good is the best outcome in value, price, and availability for everyone. Which economic system actually achieves that? As covered previously, profit motives are actually a good thing and directly lead to an increase in value and reduction in price. This is an economic fact and has been true of every single sector in the economy for the past 100 years. This is how you improve the lives of the middle class and how you actually achieve the common good. The best way to lift people out of poverty is free markets. Socialism is terrible economics and does not achieve the common good. In summary, socialism is a terrible economic model.